Greetings, family. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sista Shanice show. I am here with another message for our people. But in particular, this message and this show today is for my brothers and sisters in South Africa. I felt the need to come before the camera because I really need to speak to my brothers in South Africa. My South African brothers, I have been seeing some of the most evil, wicked videos circulating on social media emanating from South Africa. They're calling it xenophobia, a fear of foreigners. How can my brothers and sisters in South Africa really be afraid of your own brothers? How can you want to kill your own brother because he was born outside of South Africa? Why is it that you think because he was born outside of South Africa, he is not your African brother? My South African brothers and sisters, the world came to your aid, especially Africa, came to your support during those apartheid years. I remember those years during my youth when we used to picket outside of South Africa House, when we used to boycott South African products because, you know, of apartheid and the cruel and wicked treatment that you as Africans were experiencing at the hands of the white minority. The world came to your assistance, and the Africans around the world, your brothers and sisters, were at the forefront of supporting you. There's gonna come a time when you decide you want to take back your South African country, your beautiful South African country. You're going to want to join the rest of Africa and take back that piece of Africa from the hands of the minority that are controlling your country. And when you do, be aware that the European brothers and sisters around the world, those in America, those in Britain, those in Canada, those in Australia, those European descendants of those Neanderthals who know who they will stand together against you. Don't separate yourself from your brothers and sisters in Africa. Otherwise, who will be there to defend you? Who will be there to support you if you turn your back on your brothers and sisters and treat your brothers and sisters from outside of South Africa in the way that you've been treating your brothers from Nigeria and other parts of Africa? Think, my brothers. Who's pushing the propaganda? Who's controlling the media? Who's controlling the narrative that's telling you that foreigners are taking your jobs, that foreigners are creating all the crime? Who's creating this narrative? Who controls the narrative? Who controls the media? Who controls the press? They say who controls the press controls your mind, and who controls the mind controls the actions of the people whose mind they control. Think for yourself, my brothers. Clearly, we have a situation here, and it's not just in South Africa. We have a situation where the vast majority of us as melanated people, who we call, you know, ourselves Africans, where the vast majority of us have gone through the schooling system or the schooling system and never been told about who we are as a people. Many of us have gone through kindergarten or nursery school and through to primary, secondary, higher education, university, and never had that debate and that discussion in the classroom about who we are as a people. Hence the confusion that we have out there and why we're seeing so-called xenophobia today in South Africa. Melanated people, those of you with this beautiful pigmented skin, yeah? Some a few shades maybe lighter than mine, some a few shades darker than mine. This beautiful color, this beautiful melanated skin. If you have skin like this, it means that you are a human. It means that you are the first people on this earth. It means that You know, we are the ones who populated the world. Melanin. Do you know how precious melanin is? Melanin is what gives life. Melanin can be found in the soil, giving life to the insect world. Melanin can be found, you know, giving life to the trees and to the plant life. Melanin can be found, you know, in the animal kingdom. We give life there. Melanin can be found in space. Hence why there's a search for life in space. Melanin, you know, covers our organs. Hence why, you know, the black organs are invaluable. Melanin is precious. Melanin is life itself. And we, as the melanated people, gave life to the world. The oldest human fossil remains that have been found to date was found in Africa. So the oldest human beings, the oldest humans on this planet are Africans. Do you know what that means? It means that we as Africans populated the world. And I'm going to show you a migration chart so you can see where we started in Africa and then ventured out across the world. And I'm going to also show you two different species that we came across, that we mated with, and as a result of that, created two other distinctive beings that we call a kind of man. So you have mankind and a kind of man. The humans, we Africans who are humans, we are mankind. And those who we created are a kind of man. I'm going to elaborate a bit more on that. So I understand it. We haven't been taught this. So many of us are suffering from identity crisis. Many of us don't know who we are as Africans. Many of us are confused about the difference between our origin, our nationality, and our citizenship. Many of us are totally confused about that. So it's important that we all get a common understanding of the difference between our origin, our nationality, and our citizenship. And I think it's also important to say that it's not by accident that this information is being left out. It's by design. Because for as long as we're confused about who we are, we will continue to fight each other. But as soon as we have that knowledge of who we are as a people, as a collective, then we can really begin to build unity amongst us. What's the difference between origin and nationality? Our origin is where our forefathers, our ancestors originate from. And we can trace our DNA, as I said, as melanated people, right back to that continent that we call Africa today. Our origin will show that we as melanated people all originated from Africa before there were any boundaries, before there were any demarcation lines drawn across Africa. That continent of Africa is where we as melanated people started our journey from. We are all as Africans, as melanated people from that continent. And then we migrated out from there. So from the continent of Africa, prior to there being any borders, we actually populated the world. This is why anywhere you go in the world today, the oldest fossil remains that is found in any part of the world will be that of an African. Whether the fossil remains are found in China or in India or in Europe, the oldest fossil remains of any human being will be that of an African. We, the melanated people. So we're going to look at the migration of those early Africans. Remember, as Africans, we've been around for millions of years, millions of years. And if you study the migration of those early Africans by tracing the DNA, you will find from the DNA trail that the Africans populated the world. When we arrived in Europe about 40,000 years ago, we came across another species known as the Neanderthals. They were living in caves at the time. And our African ancestors, for some unknown reason, don't ask me, decided that they were going to mate with these Neanderthals. And over a period of 20,000 years of mixing, we produce a new species called Europeans. The European race, as we know them today, are the descendants of those Neanderthals mixed with our human DNA. So we, the mankind, with this other species, created a new kind of man. A kind of man. And then some of our African ancestors who didn't go towards Europe but instead migrated towards North and South America, they actually came across a species called the Denisovans. They mated with the Denisovans and created another distinctive group that we know through their DNA, have created a people with the distinctive features like those that the Papua New Guinea have, the Aboriginal Australians, the Fijis, the Polynesian Islanders, the South Americans, the Indonesians. They are the ones that were created between the Africans and the Denisovans, and from the DNA we can also see that some of them mated with the Neanderthals. All of this can be evidenced by tracing the DNA migration from out of Africa and to the rest of the world. When our ancestors came across these Neanderthals and the Denisovans, they were in an animalistic form. They were on all fours. They didn't have a language. They were grunting. They had long hair. And so we as Africans, are so fertile. Even today, as a people, we are fertile people. And that's why our melanin is so invaluable. Now, fully melanated people have very distinctive characteristics and very distinctive features, okay? You can see who we are from our lips, our nose, our melanin, our features, our hair. Yeah? We, the original Africans, are very distinctive in our features. Europeans, the descendants of the Neanderthals, mixed with the Africans, they have a very distinctive feature. Even today, if an African mixes with a European, 2-3 generations down the road, it goes from black to white. But we created that species. Yeah? So we have a very distinctive look as Africans. Europeans have a very distinctive look. Chinese have a very distinctive look. Indians have a very distinctive look. Irrespective of where a Chinese man is born, if the Chinese man is born in Africa, he is a Chinese man in Africa. If an Indian is born in America, he is still an Indian who was born in America. And now if you as an African decide that you're going to settle in America, your origin doesn't change. You are an African in America. And you, as a citizen of America, have adopted the nationality of America. If you go to China as an African, you're still an African in China. And you become a citizen of China and adopt their nationality. Your nationality is the country that you live in. It's the country where you have your citizenship. That's the country of your nationality. But that doesn't define your origin. That's why you can have Europeans living in Africa, in say Zimbabwe, and they can call themselves Zimbabweans because they are a Zimbabwean citizen and they have the nationality, have adopted the nationality of that country. But it doesn't mean that they're African. They are a European person living in Zimbabwe. A Chinese man can live in India and become a citizen of India. But that Chinese man is still a Chinese man in India. He's just adopted the nationality of that country because he's decided to live there. So we have to not get it twisted about who we are as a people. Myself, for example, I was born in the UK. My parents were born in Jamaica. I am an African. My origin is African. Yeah? My original fathers and my original mothers were in Africa. If I go back, yeah, from my parents, they were from Africa. They came out of Africa, and we know the reasons why. And we know the reasons why they ended up in the Caribbean. So my parents, they ended up in Jamaica. But they were Africans taken from Africa and brought to Jamaica. So the Jamaican nationality doesn't determine that they're no longer African. They're just Africans living in Jamaica. And some of those Africans left Jamaica and came to England. And I was born in England. I am an African, a child of I'm an African descendant living in the UK. Because I'm living in the UK and I have a British nationality, a British passport, it doesn't suddenly make me English, doesn't suddenly make me a European. I'm an African living in England. My homeland is the motherland, Africa. That's where my DNA migration started from. And, you know, if as a melanated African I decide tomorrow that I want to go and live in China, I will become a citizen of China and I will adopt their nationality. But it doesn't make me Chinese. I'm still an African living in China. So whether I'm born in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Nigeria, America or Canada or China, wherever I'm born or wherever I choose to live, my origin, who I originally am, is an African. I have here a pineapple. If I plant this pineapple in South Africa, it is still a pineapple. If I plant this pineapple in Zambia, it's still a pineapple. If I plant this pineapple in America, it's still a pineapple. If I plant this pineapple in England, it's still a pineapple. It's a pineapple in England. It's a pineapple in America. It's a pineapple in Zambia. It's a pineapple in South Africa. A pineapple is a pineapple is a pineapple, irrespective of where it's planted. Equally so, an African is an African, irrespective of where they are born. That is the difference between our origin and what we originally are and where we happen to be born or happen to be living. So my people, let's not get it twisted. If as a pineapple, you decided that you're going to hack up this pineapple because it grew in Nigeria, and you're a pineapple that happens to have grown in South Africa, you're hacking your brother. You're hacking your own. It's just that your own was born a few thousand kilometers down the road. is still your brother. A pineapple is a pineapple is a pineapple wherever it is in the world. An African is an African wherever they are in the world. And an African, by any other name, is still an African. You can call a man a Muslim. If he's an African, he's still an African Muslim. He could be a Christian, but he's still an African. If the African calls himself, calls herself a woman, she's an African woman. If the African calls himself a man, he's an African man. So whether you be an African Muslim, an African Christian, an African man, an African woman, or an African by any other name, an African is an African is an African. And we are one family. It's time we wake up and we realize that we are one people. And whilst we continue to divide ourselves, we are weakening ourselves. What we need to also realize is that we're living as a race of people amongst other races. And other races are busy developing themselves economically, politically, spiritually, militarily. They're busily developing the countries where they are. They're developing the infrastructure of those countries. And they're racing against us as Africans. And those other races realize that they're in a race, but we as Africans, we don't seem to realize that other races are racing against us. So we're there as a people in China building up the Chinese race. We're in America building up the European race. We're in India building up the Indian race. We're all over the world building up all of these other races to the detriment of our own. And then when we look to Africa and we're not there building up Mama Africa land, is it any surprise then that, Africa is in need of support? We need to reverse the brain drain, the brain drain. All of us as Africans, wherever we are in the world, whether we're living in Africa or not, need to be doing what we can to contribute towards the development of Africa, our mama land, our original place where our forefathers first started walking this earth from. So brothers and sisters, my African Muslims, my African Christians, my African men, my African women, first and foremost, we are all Africans. So we are one. United we are strong. Divided we are weak and easily conquered and overthrown. So these are the sort of discussions that we have on my radio show, www.galaxyafiwi.com. My shows are on a Wednesday from 10 AM through to 1 PM in the afternoon. It's a platform where we as Africans can come together, we can talk, we can debate, we can dialogue, we can, have a debate about issues that impact on us first and foremost. So, I welcome your views and opinions. Do share them with me. Tune in between 10 to 1 PM GMT time from anywhere in the world. You can call in via Skype. Just put us in your contacts, Galaxy Afiwi, one word, and join the debate, join the discussion. Let's come together as one big family, one love.